Welcome to Bold Voices, Good Yarns. I'm your host, Ian Henzel. Behind every book lies an author's life story. So join me on an interactive journey as we step between the pages to explore how an author's life and their experiences have shaped the stories that we cherish and love. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe or a cocktail, and join me as we step between the pages. Appear on the screen. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Ian Henzel, and I'm the host here at Bold Voices, Good Yarns. And today we're going to be in conversation with author Genevieve Rheams, who has written a new lesbian romance novel called We Will Plant Birds of Paradise, and you'll be seeing the cover of that book on the screen. So sit back, relax, have a cocktail, have a cup of joe, as we dive between the pages of Genevieve's life. So, Genevieve, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So, We Will Plant Birds of Paradise is your first novel, correct? And can you tell us a little bit about the story?
The story is basically about a family based on one specific character, Jess, who comes out in her 30s. She's married and has a couple of kids and gets a divorce. And it's about her coming out process and how her family, her kids, her parents, her girlfriend who she falls in love with, how they all adjust to this change in their lives.
And I believe her girlfriend is her next door neighbor.
Yeah. And her best friend.
Yes. And her best
Very
friends. Any parallels in your own life?
Some. I mean, mostly just in that I came out when I was 32 and because I fell in love with a woman who was my best friend, and we did not end up together, but it did make me it made me face a lot of big important questions. And I did end up getting divorced. My ex-husband is now a friend of mine, and taking that journey, especially with the kids, is what really prompted me to write this book.
So, Jess partly comes from you and your experience.
Yeah, about how, because I've talked to just so many other queer people in our experiences, and one thing that I noticed that I shared with a lot of other queer people with kids, and they come out after they have the kids, um, is that it's also a process for them. So it's not something that you really go through alone. And then I realized, well, I don't think it's something that anybody goes through alone. I mean, when someone comes out to their family and friends, everybody either steps forward with them or stays behind. And so that's really kind of what I wanted to focus on, but give Jess a little bit of a better experience than I had. Even though Jess's experience is hard. One of the things that's very different is that my parents were supportive and Jess's are not. But I did feel really intimidated since I come from a big Catholic family. I really wasn't sure how everybody was going to react.
Well, I don't know much about your past. Can you share a bit about your childhood and how it shaped your worldview? I don't know much about your background. I mean, I know you said you came from a Catholic family. Can you share a bit about your upbringing and how it shaped your worldview?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in 75. Still not a great time to be gay. My mom and dad were kind of also figuring themselves out when I was born. So they had a couple of different career attempts, and we moved a lot. And then we finally settled in Luling, Louisiana, which is what the town that Jess is in is modeled after. A very small conservative place, especially in the 80s. And so I never really felt a whole lot of I didn't feel judgment from my parents. I mean, my mom, like, I remember in the first grade, I wanted to be Luke Skywalker for Halloween, and my mom let me. And it was like I think it was the second Star Wars movie that had come out, or and so I was a fighter pilot, Luke Skywalker. And I thought I looked great, but everybody was confused. Oh, I mean, I think they were very open-minded and liberal about that. But my small town was not, and I got made fun of mercilessly. And middle school, especially over in Luling. And so actually, the character that I identify most in the book is Kevin, the 10-year-old.
Who doesn't quite fit in.
Yeah.
He's I don't want to say he's an oddball, but he's certainly different than the other kids.
Yeah, he feels a lot like how I felt when I was a kid. And I did sometimes I wonder now that there's all this great open talk about gender and about being non-binary. I never really did feel like a male or female. I just felt like me. And I feel like Kevin kind of feels the same way, which in a small town, if you're not uber male or uber female, that does make you an oddball. So I put a lot of how I felt at 10 combined with some of the reactions that my kids had to me when I came out, when they were around the same age, like the kind of discomfort of this is weird, I'm not sure who you are now, kinds of feelings that they had to go through.
And I think, yeah, I think that's a very, that's a shared experience that a lot of queer people have with their family, their friends. It's a difficult process. Where did reading come in? What was your inspiration, or where did you feel that you wanted to become a writer? Was it all in your childhood or at that point that made you want to write?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. My mom, I credit for taking us to the library. I have two younger sisters. She took us to the library all the time, read to us. I loved being read to. I still love hearing when people tell me stories. So she really kindled that love of reading. When I was in, I think, the fifth grade, my cousin and I read Judy Blume's Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing. We would like read it out loud to each other. Um, and we decided we wanted to write a book together. So we co-authored, which is a loose term, writing a young adult adventure book when I was about 10 and he was about 9. And I remember that was the first time I said out loud to my dad, I want to write books when I grow up. And then after I read S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders in the 8th grade, that was it. I knew I just wanted to write for the rest of my life.
So, well, it's very interesting because, having done a few of these interviews, one thing I consistently hear that authors say is the memory of going to the library or being taken to the library as children, and how important reading was. Was reading an escape? So you had this small town, and I grew up in New York City, so I don't know. I can imagine what a small town might be like. Was reading a way of escaping?
Yes. So in the way that Kevin carries around a copy of a book with him all the time through the book, in the 8th grade, I carried a paperback edition of The Outsiders in my pocket. It was like my emotional support book. Just carried it with me. And I read it when I could. I read it over and over, just hearing those voices of the characters talking to each other. And that was something that I felt like kept me grounded, or I felt like such a strange drifting, bizarre person in the sea of people who I thought were the normal kind of person that I was supposed to be.
No, I'm not familiar with the book.
Mm.
So I guess based on the title, it's The Outsiders. It's about kids that don't quite fit in.
Yeah, a little bit. There's like, it's in the late 60s in Oklahoma. And there are these two different social classes, the greasers and the socias. And the book is written from the point of view of a 14-year-old boy who is a writer and who reads all the time, who is part of this like downtrodden gang of kids. Like they're poor, they put grease in their hair, they don't wear name brand clothes or drive fancy cars or anything like that. And so I think with the voice of that boy really spoke to me, of feeling just kind of um not fitting in, uh and and just a little bit different, even in his own neighborhood. There weren't other kids or other boys who wrote books and read books.
I mean, it's such a common thing, talking to other queer gay people that they felt they didn't fit in. And I'm sure there are people that were, captains of the football team and they were part of the cool kids, but many of us were not part of the cool kids and were the rejects. Do you think that writing was a way to create the world you wanted?
That's a really good question. In a way, yeah. I mean, I controlled what everybody thought and said. I could say things and make characters have like a quick comeback if they got insulted, which I could not do in real life. And the other thing I think was it was my way of saying where I was and how I felt. Just being able to get it out and express it. Nobody else could, I wasn't showing it to most people. So I could kind of like get my feelings out and have it out on paper, and it would make me feel a little bit better. Almost like I was writing to myself, like I was my own friend, which is maybe the saddest thing I've ever said.
No, I think I can really relate to that, not having myself been one of the cool kids and having been made fun of.
Yeah.
Do you think, have you ever been able to turn that into a positive?
Getting made fun of.
Yeah, well, I don't mean as a kid, that was horrible, but looking back, our experiences go into making who we are.
Yeah.
How do you think that contributed to who you are?
I think that in a positive way, it has made me appreciate so much more than I think maybe the average person, the good relationships that I have, the really good friendships that I have, and being surrounded by people who love and support me and don't make fun of me. And I have, so one of my friends, Fred, and he was made fun of mercilessly too. And we have talked about how, like, when we turned 18 and went to college and stuff and suddenly got all these friends and weren't getting like bullied and all that stuff, that I think that we valued having friends so much more than the average person. On the other hand, it sometimes there are still sometimes that if a person says something like, "You're so cool," or something like that, I think, sure. Have you talked to my eighth grade class? And it was
Well,
so long ago.
I think I might have had a little bit of an advantage. My high school graduating class had over 1,300 kids in it.
Wow.
So with a population that large, certainly grade school and junior high were horrible. I was part of the reject group in high school, but you could find other rejects,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes. Yeah,
in
high
high
school
school.
was better for me too. I ended up going, because junior high was so bad, I asked my mom and dad to send me out of Luling and into New Orleans, which was only about 30 minutes away, to go to the same private Catholic high school that my favorite aunt went to, and Dominican. Even though it wasn't like a perfect experience, it was a private school. They made you wear uniforms. Nobody could make fun of me for my clothes. Nobody knew me. I could start fresh. I was still kind of quiet and shy and weird, but I found other quiet and shy, weird people. So it worked out great.
That's the benefit of high school. I'm always amazed at people that wax on nostalgically about their childhood and their high school years. And I was like, what planet did you grow up on? So we know that you read a lot, and we know that you like The Outsiders. Were there any other authors that had a profound impact on you?
Eudora Welty, very much. I got really into these Southern writers who were kind of writing around like the 40s and the 50s, like William Styron. Um, I hadn't gotten into Kurt Vonnegut yet. That came later. I also, this is not a Southern writer, but I loved Paul Zindel, the guy who wrote The Pig Man. I don't know if you ever read that, but that was another
No.
like really good young adult book that had like kids who were going through real struggles, but it was also funny. And Theodore Welty, William Stein were the really big ones. I fell in love with Toni Morrison pretty early on too. Their writing style that was almost more like it was like poetry as narration.
Yeah, that prose, where prose becomes almost, the rhythm of the sentences, the construction of the sentences. Yeah, the art of language and the beauty of language. Now, is there anything that readers would be surprised to learn influenced your writing?
Music, actually, a lot of punk.
Really? Really?
And a lot of that, and some, I guess, alternative music, like the Dandy Warhols are kind of from the late 90s, early 2000s, but I was really heavily influenced by them. And the Beatles, I listen to a lot of that while I write. Music really puts me in this kind of trance that I start to envision stories, and I just write them down. And although I present as a very like kind of calm, gentle natured person, and I am, that could be why I'm really drawn to just me kind of music.
And I think you also like heavy metal. Am I
So
correct?
much, so much. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's surprising. It's surprising, but it sounds like music, whatever music does for you, it gets in touch. It pushes those neurons that pushes you into, you call it a trance-like state, but it pushes
I
you
can
into the
call it,
state.
yeah, I call it my third place. That is kind of how I thought of it in high school. Like, it's not really being asleep and dreaming, but it's not being fully awake. I guess it's another way to describe just kind of being in the zone, is what a lot of writers would call it. Like, just kind of being in this state where you're relaxed and can kind of see another world and hear the characters talking. And certain music and certain songs really keep me in that place. Yeah, that was another real, when I was a kid, that was another great escape. And I would kind of listen to music and write at the same time. I also was a little, I know this sounds crazy. I was a little hesitant, like when I was trying to figure out, like, where do I fall on the spectrum of gay, of sexuality? And I was thinking that because I was really into heavy metal, I didn't know if lesbians could do that. So I wasn't sure, like, what does this mean? Does this mean like, I mean, because I'm not that crazy about the song "Come to My Window," can I still be a lesbian? Like, is that allowed? It turns out, yes.
Well, I'm from a generation where women's music was getting off the ground, so I'm a little bit older than you. When you were born, I had already come out. I had been out for about 2 years already. So it was a time of women's music, but I don't recall heavy metal. I don't remember Holly Near or Alex Dobkin recording any heavy metal albums. I would pay to get to have some of that, but I
Well,
don't
the
recall
first
it.
famous person that I remember having a crush on was Joan Jett, because I watched some MTV that I probably shouldn't have watched when I was really little. And I remember her videos and thinking, she's such a pretty tomboy. And she sang some she sang some rock and roll, not maybe hardcore rock and roll, but she was a little harder than the typical female guitar.
I remember Cat Stevens was my crush, and I wasn't out. I mean, I didn't admit anything to myself, and I had a big poster of Cat Stevens over my bed. So, we were talking about how music pushes you into like this third place, this other
Yeah.
world. So the question I ask all of our authors is, when writers write a book, they're creating worlds. And sometimes those worlds are fantastical and sometimes they're pretty much like our world. So if you could live in a book, what book would you choose to live in?
Such a great question. It definitely wouldn't be The World of the Outsiders. The Rings. Because, hear me out. Not so much like I wouldn't be part of the team that goes to Mordor, has all the horrible things happen to them. But to be an elf in that world would be crazy. They're they can do magic. They're, women are pretty badass. Like they they can talk to trees and animals, and their dexterity is insane. Like the Legolas, the elf in the book, could jump onto a running elephant and shoot a bow and arrow with complete accuracy. And like that kind of thing, I think would just be wonderful and fun to kind of live in nature, be immortal, and like look gorgeous forever.
So you don't see yourself as a dwarf with a big axe?
I mean, it depends. Do they let the women sling the axe?
The reason why I asked this question is because when I was a kid, I often wanted to live in books, and I often wished I could go into a book. And I thought everybody did that. I thought, of course, everybody does that. And 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 I'm finding that maybe I'm out there where the buses don't run. That estimate to an author when they create a world that's rich, that you can envision it beyond the main characters.
Yeah, he created his own language. Who does that for one book series? Like, he created Elvish, and like he was just amazing. You have to create different worlds of people that have their own way of dressing, way of talking, their own system of government. That is just so much. I think that to keep that in my head would drive me nuts. I have a hard enough time writing about the world we live in, keeping that straight.
Well, the book, one of the books, and I've said this before, other podcasts that I wanted to be in was the Danny Dunn series, which was kind of a science geeky. It was Danny Dunn and his friends, and it was three of them, two boys and a girl, and they had these adventures. They were friends with the professor. So there was Danny Dunn in the anti-gravity paint, Danny Dunn in the homework machine, Danny Dunn in the automatic house. And I have to profess that I thought that they had really cool adventures. And I had a crush on Danny Dunn because the illustrations, he was everything I wasn't. He was blonde, this very Aryan boy, and I was not any of that. So partly I wanted to bask in Danny Dunn's warm glow. Well, Genevieve, it's been fantastic. Thank you for being here with us. So once again, we've been in conversation with Genevieve Rheams, who has written a new lesbian love story, or I've also heard they're called sapphic romances, a new lesbian romance called We Will Plant Birds of Paradise. And that's available from Rattling Good Yarns Press in print and ebook. And before we go, I want to remind you to subscribe, hit the bell so you can get notice of new episodes that we have. It really helps us out. Once again, Genevieve, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Ian. This is a lot of fun.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone. You've been listening to Bold Voices, Good Yarns, brought to you by Rattling Good Yarns Press. Subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube, and follow us on social media. Search for Rattling Good Yarns Press. Also, visit our website at rattlinggoodyarns.com, where you can find great reads and interesting articles about the world of books. See you soon!